November 13th, 1994. 2 o'clock ticks over at the Adelaide Street Circuit in South Australia, and today is race day. With the sunlight fighting through cloud cover, 132,000 spectators take their spot around the 3.78 kilometre track, ready to watch the 16th and final race of the season. A calamitous race that closes out one of Formula One's most tragic and transformative seasons in the sport's history. 26 cars roll into the starting grid. A mix of 3.5 litre V8s, V10s and V12s sit in idle as they wait to attack the first of 81 laps. Facing the famous Senna chicane in third place sits Damon Hill in the Williams, trying to snatch his first driver's trophy in only his third F1 campaign. The other championship protagonist, Michael Schumacher, driving for Benetton, is ahead of him in second place. In his bid to become world champion, Schumacher had a dominant start to the season, but a recent 2-race suspension has contributed to his lead being reduced to a single point over Hill. On pole position is the second Williams manned by the People's Champion Nigel Mansell. Mansell outqualified both title contenders with a time of 1 minute 16.17 in wet and tricky qualifying conditions to take his 32nd career pole. It's also worth mentioning that Johnny Herbert starts the GP in a lowly 7th, qualifying 1 second slower than the lead Benetton. This is not ideal, as only 5 points separate the top 2 teams in the fight for the Constructors' Championship. Team Benetton hopes to win their first, while Team Williams wants to repeat the success of their previous 2 seasons. Williams dominated the 1993 season, with teammates Alain Prost taking first and Damon Hill taking third in the Drivers' Championship, securing the team's 6th Constructors' Trophy for good measure. The season was also notable for its integration of new and sophisticated technology into the sport. Adrian Newey and Patrick Head developed the FW15C chassis with active suspension, power steering, traction control, ABS, and several other electronic driver aids, making it one of the most technologically advanced cars of all time. After taking his 4th Drivers' Trophy that season, Prost hung up his helmet and handed over the keys of his championship-winning car to an old rival. For the 1994 season, team principal Sir Frank Williams rolled out the FW16 for their new driver Ayrton Senna and returning driver Damon Hill. From the get-go, the FW16 proved to be a handful, with the car having the unusual propensity to understeer and oversteer. After the previous season, the FIA decided to ban electronic driver aids from Formula One to make the sport more human. Having designed their 94 car around all that 93 technology, Williams was suddenly left with a chassis that had poor handling and terrible aerodynamics. Despite its instability, Senna still managed to clinch 2 pole positions in Brazil and Japan. Unfortunately, the Brazilian driver could not convert his poles as he failed to finish both races. Hill had a mixed bag of results on the other side of the garage as he placed 2nd in Brazil, but would also DNF in Japan. May the 1st held the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola, Italy, which saw Senna claim his 3rd straight pole. Ayrton felt the pressure and was pushing hard to produce a positive result, but for the 3rd straight time, Senna does not finish the race. His teammate placed 6th and collected a point. Imola 1994 is a race forever woven into the fabric of Formula One and consequently all of motorsport. But we'll talk about this fateful Grand Prix another time. Needless to say, Williams' season had gotten off to a wretched start. With the car now stripped of its technological advantages, their drivers struggled to understand it, and their engineers were equally confused. Their miserable form would continue in round 4 at Formula One's crown jewel, Monaco. It might be the only time nobody wanted to attend the prestigious and glamorous event. Damon Hill was the sole Williams entrant that weekend. His race ended prematurely after a first lap retirement, and Williams again failed to score any points. That means both cars managed only 2 results for 7 points over the initial 4 races of the season, averaging just 1.75 points per round. It was at this stage things started to turn for the constructor. Over the next 11 races, Williams accumulated 101 points for an average of 9.18 points per round, a 425% increase, lifting them to within 5 points in their pursuit of the Constructors' Trophy. This significant uplift in performance was mainly due to two things. The first was a series of extensive upgrades fitted to the Williams after the Imola GP. The second was Damon Hill, claiming 10 podiums and 6 Grand Prix wins after stepping into the lead car. By Adelaide, Hill finds himself head-to-head with Schumacher, equally young and ambitious, with a real shot at taking the Drivers' Championship. The lights go out and it's game on. Mansell gets a poor start due to massive wheel spin off the line and drops to third coming out of the Senna chicane. Nigel would later claim he did so deliberately after the powers that be told him not to interfere in this race and watch from behind. He falls further down the field after a lockup at turn 5, narrowly avoiding the outside wall, a manoeuvre that would prove popular this race. After completing lap 1, Schumacher leads Hill in second, Mansell in 5th, and Herbert in 9th. Unable to keep up with his teammate, Herbert falls to 15th by the end of lap 2. His disappointing performance earned him a quip from the great Murray Walker. Quote, "To the Jos Verstappen club of not being able to keep up with his team leader." At the front of the race, our championship protagonists continue their battle 17 seconds ahead of third placed Mika Hakkinen. After failing several late braking manoeuvres, Mansell finally passes Rubens Barrichello for 4th place and sets his sight on the Finns' McLaren. The Grand Prix falls into a familiar holding pattern as the laps tick over. Lap 18 arrives and with it some pit stop action. Still battling hard for the lead, Michael and Damon come in simultaneously. Both drivers have opted for the same 3-stop strategy to maintain a quicker race pace with lower fuel loads and better quality Goodyear Eagles. This, combined with slightly faster fuel stops, theoretically makes it the ideal strategy. The cars bounce off their pit limiters, with both drivers applying maximum throttle, unwilling to give or concede a millisecond to the other. Team Benetton, led by the infamous and ruthless Flavio Briatore, executes a modest 7.4 second pit stop for Schumacher, changing 4 Goodyears and giving it a drink of high-octane race fuel. The mechanics' efficiency protects their driver's valuable lead. Team Williams takes slightly longer in their service of the FW16B. Damon will have to take Michael's lead on the track if he is to be world champion. 10 more laps pass, and our leaders are still only separated by half a second in favour of the German. Both drivers are masterfully in sync with their machinery. They make perfect upshifts through the 6-speed H-pattern gearbox and even smoother heel-toe downshifts, a technique only the best of the best can do. It's clear that both drivers are putting everything on the line for the most coveted crown in motorsport, and neither driver is letting up. Working on his lead, Schumacher keeps an eye on his side mirrors for Hill as they weave through the back markers, desperate to extend that half a second. Lap 29 proves to be the peak of the Grand Prix, with optimal track conditions, minimal traffic, and the perfect balance of fuel load and tyre life. Concentration is at an all-time high as the front runners set their personal best lap times. Schumacher's is better, and his lap will stand as the fastest lap of the race. Further down the field, Mansell has caught Hakkinen in 3rd place, but is again struggling to make a successful pass. The old Brit stays aggressive, and after a few dive bombs and switchbacks, he forces Hakkinen to make a mistake, locking his inside tyre and running wide. Mansell gets easy passage in what will turn out to be a critical position in the race. Michael Schumacher starts lap 35, having eked out a 1.6 second gap over Hill. This puts Schumacher just out of Hill's sight around the staircase section of corners 4 to 7. The coverage suddenly cuts to a dramatic shot of Michael on the grass at the exit of turn 5. He's made a mistake and brushed the wall. Hill is desperate as he sees his first shot at the lead after 35 frustrating laps stuck behind the German. He dives to the left of the track, slightly locking up his loaded tyre, then switches to the inside of the Benetton to make an inside pass. The two cars collide mid-corner, and the Benetton is flung almost 90 degrees to the Adelaide tarmac before slamming back down and retiring into the barriers. Race over. The Williams continues on, but it's unclear how much damage it has sustained. Can Hill finish the race and secure the 2 points needed to become world champion? He limps his wounded car back to pit lane, and it becomes evident his front left has been punctured. Although far from ideal, it's not necessarily race-ending. After what must have felt like an eternity, Hill pulls into his pit box and shakes his head in disappointment when he spots the kinked upper wishbone on the front left-hand side. Critical damage. It's a repair that cannot be carried out mid-race, nor damage you can safely continue racing with. Damon stays strapped to his car for 26 excruciating seconds while his mechanics inspect the situation. His hopes were officially dashed when Patrick Head retired the FW16B for the final time. Race over. A helpless Michael Schumacher is spotted outside turn 6, his Benetton still stranded. He anxiously watches the trackside screens to see if Williams can get their driver back out to score the necessary points against him. Eventually, Michael sees Damon climb out of his cockpit and he erupts in celebration with fans around him. Pandemonium sweeps the Benetton garage after watching the same vision. They all know what this double DNF means. Schumacher has just become the first German Formula One world champion. Despite all the madness surrounding the championship battle, the race continues unaffected by a safety car. With 46 laps to go, Nigel Mansell inherits the lead with a 2.4 second gap over Austrian ace Gerhard Berger. This lead would only last until the final round of pit stops, 8 laps later. Mansell emerges second behind Berger after the Ferrari sets a stellar outlap to take the lead of the Grand Prix. Gerhard, who's had a turbulent season with 1 win and 7 DNFs, is now within reach of taking a second victory and undoing all the heartbreak the season had dealt him. In only his 4th Grand Prix of the year, Mansell was brought into the team to help consolidate the Constructors' Championship and assist Damon Hill in winning the Drivers' Trophy if possible. The 185 race veteran looked motivated to deliver for his team. With only a handful of laps to go and Mansell applying atmospheric pressure to the rear of the prancing horse, Berger buckles. His loaded tyre catches the turn 8 ripple strip and the vehicle bottoms out. With maximum attitude on the car, it bites back and sends Berger wide off the track. Mansell sails by and claims his 31st and final F1 victory at 41 and is still today the only driver to win a Grand Prix over the age of 40. Martin Brundle takes 3rd place and gives us a classic Williams, Ferrari and McLaren podium. Michael Schumacher wins the Drivers' Trophy by 1 point, a differential that has occurred only 9 times in Formula One's 74-year history. 30 years prior, Graham Hill, yes, Damon's father, lost the 1964 championship by 1 point to another Ferrari legend, John Surtees. Schumacher dedicated his title win to his idol Ayrton Senna in a show of respect. As one legacy ends, a new one is only just beginning. The Williams' garage perfectly encapsulated their season with shock and heartbreak mixed in with the spoils of victory. Damon Hill would have to wait 2 more years to swap the number 0 for the number 1. Mansell's victory sees Williams take the Constructors' Trophy back to Oxfordshire for the 7th time. His $900k race fee paying off. Following that infamous weekend in May, Adrian Newey expressed deep guilt for the instability of the FW16 and even considered leaving the sport. Ultimately, he decided against it as it would have left the team in disarray. Williams overhauled its chassis by lengthening its wheelbase and shortening its side pods, which were expensive and complicated upgrades to implement mid-season. Post-Imola, Newey debuted the FW16B, the revised chassis that took Williams and Damon Hill to Adelaide in contention for both titles. This highlighted 2 things. One was Adrian's engineering expertise in quickly identifying and correcting the car's problems, enabling the team to make a late season charge. The second was Ayrton Senna's extraordinary concentration and car control as he wrangled the unstable Williams to 3 pole positions, proving he was different from the rest. Adelaide was a fitting end to the 94 season. It was a track Senna loved, and it honoured him with a chicane named after the F1 great. After experiencing the highest highs and the lowest lows during the season, only one question remains. Is Williams' season remembered differently if Damon Hill wins the 1994 Drivers' Championship?
Round 1. Player 1. Ready. Player 2. Ready. Fight.
So what made you choose Adelaide 1994? What was the big reason why?
The catalyst?
Yep.
Well, I saw some footage and it intrigued me.
What was the footage?
Well, I was watching Adelaide because the supercars still go there. To tell you the truth.
Same layout, same track layout and everything?
Slightly different. Slightly different, but close enough.
Is a
Senna chicane, yeah, most of it's still there.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of changes, but watching that, and they just kept showing, of course, Formula 1 from 94. And just like bang, straight away, light bulb, like, yeah, that's what I gotta do. It's got everything I love, Australia.
Yeah.
Bit of Senna.
Yeah.
You know, good rivalry.
He's your favourite driver, isn't he?
He probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Adelaide is a better track than Melbourne?
Yes.
From a spectator point of view or from a driver's point of view or both?
Well, Melbourne's gotten a lot better in the last couple of years.
With the amendments?
Yeah. So it is pretty good, but Adelaide's a classic street circuit. Big curbs, 90-degree corners. It's a good track.
Yeah.
I'd prefer they go there. I think it'd be cool if they go back, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how they'd go with the Senna chicane. It's pretty gnarly.
There's a few countries that have 2 Grand Prix on the calendar, and it has happened multiple times.
Yeah.
I think I just saw Spain is getting another one.
Not sure.
So why can't we have 2?
Yep. We got a few good tracks around as well, not just those 2. But if it was between Adelaide and Melbourne, like I do think Melbourne is a ripping track now, and it's commonly one of the best tracks and races on the calendar.
Yeah.
But Adelaide's classic heritage, produced good racing.
What was the last year that they raced there?
Oh, I don't know. It might have been like 95. 94 would have been close to the end.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like I can picture cars in 96 in Melbourne.
Yeah, right. So 94 was, right on the...
Right towards the end.
Yep. Yeah, right. Okay.
But, I mean, tell me it's not a great track, right?
I think it's a great track. Rewatching that race, I definitely think I preferred it over Melbourne. I do agree. Melbourne's a great track now. They've definitely made some changes that have
just produced a good racing.
Yeah. And like obviously this year, the weather was probably more of a factor than anything that made it such an entertaining race.
Yep.
But yeah, I'd love to see them go back to Adelaide.
Cars might be too big now.
There could be an issue.
Hey, maybe with them next regs, they're going a third of the size. They're dropping right down, 2/3 the size.
They need to.
Yeah, they're like monsters now.
Do you think that cars looked better back then compared to today?
Oh, yeah. Like I've said before, my favourite looking car is like the previous regulations to what they are now. I think the cars now don't look that good.
So the turbo hybrid era.
Yeah, specifically 2017 onwards, where they just widen the cars, big wheels, really low. But those that 90s era of Formula 1 is pretty cool. You know, you picture that Williams, you picture that early 90s McLaren.
Wasn't it funny to think that they had, what was it, V8s, V10s and V12s all on the grid?
Yeah, regs were like a lot more open.
You'd never see that anymore.
No.
Do you think, based off what you know, if you're in a V12 compared to a V8, is there an advantage or a disadvantage for...
I think it weighs themselves out. Like V12 is probably going to be a lot heavier, you know, and power could be similar, but then you're probably talking a difference of torque range, where your power is delivered. So I think it all probably comes out in the wash, but I guess it'd be dependent on your chassis. And back then they probably didn't care so much where your center of gravity was. So it's probably like, cool, put weight nice and low in the back of the car. Perfect. Yeah. So you got more weight and it might be more beneficial to... So you probably had a minimum weight.
Yeah.
But as far as where you carry it, probably wasn't as strict back then.
Yeah, okay.
So if you can put a lot more weight, especially down the bottom end of your engine, and a lot more weight at the back of the car, it's probably almost an advantage.
So obviously V6s, they're not it. What's your pick out of the other three? If you could take one, like which one are you taking?
To power Formula One now?
Yep.
So I think the favourite answer is V10. And I do think that is a...
Is it just that perfect balance of power to
I
weight?
think it's the sound, right? It's the sound. But I would almost say V8. I mean, my coming into the sport around that 2011, 2012 year mark was V8s.
Yeah, that was the last era before they switched, wasn't it?
Yeah. And like, they sound pretty unreal. I mean, we went to Melbourne in 2011 or 12.
That was that last time you went to...
That was, yes. Yeah. I remember it being nose bleeding, ear bleeding.
Yeah.
Like, it was loud.
Yeah, I remember we're lucky we got to experience that. Like, fans today have no idea what that was like.
No.
And I do have very vivid memories. Funny we're talking about Melbourne on an Adelaide race, but I have very vivid memories of one, the track not being like heavily populated. It was like you could pick a spot anywhere and there's space.
Different time in Formula One, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I remember entering the track and some dude selling earplugs for like $5.
Yeah.
And just going,
Yeah.
$5 for earplugs? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. You're here to hear the cars.
The minute we get down to trackside and they blow past us, it was straight away like, where's that guy with the $5 earplugs?
Yeah,
'Cause,
100%.
yeah, ear bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of racetracks and seen a lot of motorsport, but that was different.
Yeah.
That's a memory I'll have forever. It's exactly the same. I remember like first lap, you're like, whoa, this is something else.
Yeah.
Lap 2, you're like, okay, you just can't stand trackside with them without proper ear protection. Like,
so in regards to Adelaide, you've got quite a few things occurred in the race. You've got the famous Schumacher Hill incident.
Yep.
Which I'll get your views on. You got Mansell getting his last F1 race, and obviously the title was decided as well. Do you think that like it's funny because Senna obviously passed away quite early in the season, and then the season ends months down the track. Do you think that F1 was still kind of overshadowed by the Senna death, or do you think that by that stage, Williams as a team, all the drivers,
it was probably almost, I could only imagine, it was recirculating towards season's end.
yeah, like it's coming back around?
Yeah, I reckon it would have almost, the racing goes on, and we have seen footage of that year of some of the oddities that they brought out as temporary measures, like Spain, just throw some tire bundles in, put in a temporary chicane just to slow cars down at fast corners.
That's wild, isn't it?
Yeah. So the legacy of Imola and the events that happened carried on throughout the whole season. But you would imagine, the racing takes over. There's still going to be a world champion. There's still a lot of money out there. Like, things are going to happen.
It's still business, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it goes on. They put someone else in the car. It continued. And you'd think you would have hit status quo, and then come towards the end of the season, it would almost naturally, at the end of 94 season, it's the end of the most tragic season of Formula One history. It's go on from there. So you'd imagine it would have come back up in Adelaide, and it would have been rough. And then, of course, Williams are right there, right in the hunt.
Well, in saying that, I mean, in the retelling, I mentioned that Schumacher wins the championship, and he just starts essentially his career, and his legacy is beginning from that moment on.
Yep.
And it's sort of funny how these moments continue to happen, where one legacy comes to an end and there's like a torch that's sort of passed to the next driver, who then goes on kind of a legacy.
Seems that way, yeah.
And it's sort of funny to think that like Schumacher and Senna, they raced against each other.
Yeah, they overlapped
for a brief period of time.
Yeah.
But were essentially robbed of maybe a better
rivalry.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, how many sports have an old head and a like new, young, hungry dude, and they just don't.
Yeah. And Formula One often have that.
Yeah.
They have that clash. We saw it, Max and Lewis.
Yeah.
We we've seen it. And even now, Verstappen's becoming that slightly old head, and you got Oscar coming through and happening again. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned like how early in the season it was a bit of a shock doing all the research we did for this episode. Round 3, like wow, that he didn't get much of a run in that car.
Yeah, no, he got the worst of it. He got one of the worst Williams in that era for sure.
Like there's only 16 rounds in the season, which alone is like, wow, they only did 60. We're doing 8 more races now than then.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, round 3 is quite early in the year.
So it's funny where I was going with it is, you know, Schumacher essentially takes like the baton and his era begins, right?
Yeah.
By him making the move that he did on Hill, and you know, essentially ending both of their races.
Yeah.
He takes the Drivers' Championship and he goes on and dedicates the win to Ayrton Senna. And essentially, you could say robs Damon Hill and Williams of having that honour. You know, if that incident didn't occur, if his suspension doesn't get busted and he gets to get back out in the race and score some points, and if Damon Hill wins that season, in some ways it almost feels like it was supposed to go that way. So Williams could then dedicate, you know, their hard work and turning the season around in Senna's honour. And they didn't really get the chance to do that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm glad they didn't.
Why is that?
Well, I feel like...
You think it was better that it was Schumacher in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I picture... Before, and again, we've done a lot of research for this episode. So I'll have my pre-beliefs and then what they are now. And if I think of 94 Williams, I just think of an absolute dog shit piece of car.
Yeah.
You know, it obviously culminated in the accident. And that's the big talking point, I feel. And is it the big talking point because Williams didn't achieve that Drivers' Championship, which is what you're often remembered for? And if that's the case, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think, they turned the car around, but why did it have to take the death of Ayrton Senna for them to do it?
Yeah.
And is that right? That they get to then go in and have success?
If that doesn't happen, do they turn their form around to even
Probably
be
not.
competing at the end of the year?
So they probably don't pull their finger out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it took the loss of Ayrton Senna for them to find the form and make the changes needed.
I guess the other thing that goes hand in hand with that is Senna's probably not remembered for being a Williams driver either.
That's the thing with 3 rounds.
Yeah. So
very minimum.
So there's almost like a part of it. It's like that was never meant to be, or it shouldn't have been. You know, I mentioned how Alain Prost, his greatest rival, hangs up the helmet and then gives the keys to the best car on the grid, at least in 1993, directly to his rival. And he, you know, all of a sudden Senna finds himself in a Williams, but it's not the same Williams that was.
And that's how common is that?
Yeah.
How common is that scenario?
Yeah.
Of a driver going, yes, this is my opportunity, and the car just takes a hit. But that's the thing. Prost had in his contract, I'm not racing with Ayrton Senna.
Yeah.
It will not happen.
That's pretty nuts, isn't it?
Yeah. So what, I'd like to know what happened. Were they like, we're bringing him in? All right, I'm out. Or was it, you're out? Cool, we're bringing him in.
I think from what I could see, it was that. It was, if he's in, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, he's in. So he was like, oh, well, I'm out then. See ya. Yeah. So I think what's even more remarkable then is, you know, he finds himself in a Williams. It's not quite the same car as it was the year before, yet he still put it on pole.
Yeah.
In a car that he was unfamiliar with and was just a shit
Clearly
fight.
a handful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That he was able to step in and be the fastest man out in there.
And I'd say that's another little known fact of that season. That, he wrangled pace out of that car.
Yeah.
Like, he was committed. He was full in, no matter what the situation was.
Yeah.
To the point what happened. But, he clearly was showing his driving skill. I mean, clearly Damon Hill's no slowpoke. Multiple world champion.
Yeah.
Nearly pulled it off that year, and he wasn't doing that, right?
No. So back to Adelaide then. The famous incident, the most famous incident of that race.
Yeah.
Do you think it was deliberate? Do you think Schumacher knew what he was doing?
The only way you could question it is if he didn't crash the corner before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he clearly he crashes, and he's made his mind up. He's like, my only shot is to take him out because he's taken himself out. His only shot is to take out Damon Hill.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's all he saw, black and white, and he went for it, right? Because he's that ruthless, and that just blunt.
If you looked at his career and that was the only blemish, right? You could probably be convinced of like heat of the moment. He was just trying to defend.
Do the same thing.
Yeah, he was trying to defend. You know, maybe went it a little hot and caused the incident, whatever. But it's Schumacher, and that wasn't his only blemish. Throughout his career, he had a number of those incidences where it was like, okay, the motive was maybe a bit questionable there, and I think he knows exactly what he was doing. So you sort of look at that event and you go, he's a smart man. He knows his racecraft. He knew what was at stake, and he did what he had to do to win.
Yeah,
and
I think that was
you can't really blame him. You
can't blame him. It wouldn't happen these days,
you can't
right?
Blame him. But you can't blame him.
We talked about 20 with 21 Abu Dhabi straight away. If either one of you try anything sus, DQ, points penalty, we have one for a fair race here.
They're like, we've seen this before.
Yeah, clearly back then, I don't know, was it just in race penalties? Like, all right, Schumacher, you get a penalty, but you're both out of the race anyway.
Yeah.
You know, there was potentially no such thing as disqualifying someone for that type of incident, because clearly it was his fault. It's almost hard to watch because you see Damon, you go, how did you not know he went off track? Like, he gained up so much time on him. He could see he's ducking left, he's ducking right, and then he just forces it. It's like, man, if he just... Again, I'm sort of happy the way things turned out, but if he just takes a minute, take a breath, and again, laps counting down...
Doesn't force the manoeuvre at that particular corner.
You know, if he... Yeah. There's a chance Schumacher wasn't going to make that corner, or the next one, depending on how much damage he sort of had. You know, if you just bide your time a little, but... Easier said than done, I suppose.
Yeah,
but it's pretty clear, I think, what Schumacher was up to.
Yeah,
like I said, if he doesn't hit the wall the lap before, you could always say he didn't see him coming, all sorts. But it's like you crash, you're kind of out, and then you straight away make the decision to take out your opponent.
A desperate move, right? Yeah.
And it's funny because, you know, imagine if Nige gets off the line and he's in between them.
Yeah.
Different story. You know. So everything plays out exactly how it's supposed to. They tell Nige to keep his nose out of it. And he does what he's told to do. Lets them race 1v1.
Yeah. I mean, look, I often just question everything. So I do, you know, when I watched that and read that, immediately I was like, was that just him covering for having a really piss poor start? You know, you never really know. You can't
blame the guy as well. That was his fourth race of the season. The fact that again he put that on pole. Yeah, remarkable.
So good cover, very believable. You know, easy way to be like, well, I'm not supposed to be in this race, so you know, I shouldn't have been on pole. Yeah, you know,
whoops.
Yeah, whoops.
My bad.
But at the same time, he put the car on pole. He knew how to drive it. He was the fastest man out there. I mean, very different conditions in qualifying compared to the race. So. Clearly, probably that experience was shown
the eldest
through. Yeah,
of those three.
So, but yeah, part of me does think like how much of it was just covering for a really bad start, and how much of it was behind the scenes FIA being like, Nige, mate, you don't have a horse in this race. Get the fuck out of the way and let these guys cook.
You do bring up a good point. I do feel like Mansell's probably not the type of character to also be like, okay, I'm out. Yeah. Like, come on. He probably knew it was his last race as well. Like, you're probably right. I'm on your side on this one.
So, I think he did come back the year after for one or two races, I think, from memory.
Okay.
But let's just say that, you know, that's his last win. Essentially ends his career on a high, and he is in his 40s.
He was already a part-timer at that point. Yeah. He's coming back just for the ledger.
Pretty incredible achievement. I think. Excellent moustache. You know, glad to see that still going strong.
Yeah, still rocking it.
Best moustache in F1. Yeah. So,
outside of this podcast, of course.
Yeah, outside of this podcast. Do you see, like right now, obviously Hamilton's the guy that could potentially get a win in his 40s. Do you think that that's a real threat, or do you think that?
I think it's got to be a real threat. Is he 40 yet?
Don't know.
Yeah, I know
maybe.
I feel like he's close.
Must be this year.
Yeah.
If not this year, it's next
I
year.
think it's got to be a real threat. I mean,
Yeah.
it's clear he showed last year.
Certainly not Alonso.
No. Well, no. I think he's won a sprint, and he showed last season he won 2 races. So, yeah, he'd be silly to bet against. Could he win a race in his 40s?
Yeah.
And he's always going to be in a top tier car. I don't see him being a Fernando, and yeah, I'll take the Williams seat. Why not? Like, he's going to be in the Ferrari, or he's not going to be in the Sport, or he'll end up. If he goes anywhere, it's going to be a top tier team. So he's always going to be in contention, I'd say, at least.
Was there any names that you're kind of surprised or like, kind of shocked to see in there? Like,
It's always good to see when you see the Jos Verstappens in there.
yeah,
And obviously Martin Brundle. Like, he's such a character of today's Formula One. You almost forget
you almost forget he was a driver.
he was a driver, and a half decent one as well,
Yeah.
So-
I mean, snatched a podium.
Yeah. And even, who was Verstappen's teammate? I can't think of his
remember.
name, but Johnny Herbert, he's from time to time in the comms team and around the paddock.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So you see him every now and then. Again, you kind of forget he doesn't look like a race driver, right?
Yeah.
You kind of forget that he was once strapped into one of them. So
Yeah. Herbert was Schumacher's teammate.
Yeah.
So as far as the Williams season, then do you think it is remembered differently if they win it?
I think
That's the big
naturally.
question, right?
I think naturally, and again, just talking from myself, I pictured that season as a bad season. It's still the overarching theme of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can come to any conclusion that they had a good season. But then if they win the championship, it's non-disputable. And, maybe I think it's remembered differently if they win it purely because they won it. They go from no pace, struggling, causing a proper professional driver to have a crash of that nature, to then going through to win it. It probably does make you look at the season differently, or the team differently, or potentially even Senna differently. I mean, they never got to the bottom of what happened with his crash.
No.
Was it a failure? Was it a setup issue?
So they say.
Yeah, I mean, they were criminally investigated.
It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. So,
Like any death in sport is always a bit shocking. It's pretty much the last thing that you expect to
so
see happen.
controlled.
Yeah, especially these days. Like you see some of the crashes these days, and you just think, how do they walk out? And not even like alive is one thing, but uninjured is another thing.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of the crashes in the earlier eras of F1, and you think, like, how did they not walk away from that? And this definitely wasn't one of those situations. Like his death, the speed he was traveling on the track and the surface and all those sorts of things combined, and obviously the car had issues. That was a nasty one, and that definitely probably still does. It just lingers over the sport, doesn't it? Like that's someone of that talent and that stature who had so much success. I mean, it wasn't the most successful F1 driver in history.
He only had 10 years in the sport.
Well, yeah, but he was in one of the probably most brutal eras of F1 in terms of, like, there was 2 deaths in that weekend alone. So whilst there was technology that was coming into the sport and into the cars, the safety standards certainly weren't there. And the assistance, like the driver aids, to, maybe help catch the cars when they do, step out on you or whatever. Those sorts of things weren't there. So I think for me, watching those sorts of races, part of me does have a longing for like that era of motorsport. And I think those guys were psychos. Very little technology, like concrete barriers.
You're racing
3 meters off the racing track.
You have to. You're racing. You have to do it.
Yeah,
they're in love with it.
I often wonder about a driver's mentality today on the grid. When you're on a grid and you're about to start a race, I don't like what is the thoughts and the feelings that you're going through in that moment. I think the last thing that any of them expect is to be injured or, have a fatality. But you look at F1 back then, and they don't have the benefit of knowing what we know now today. But God, some of those guys must have felt just sick to their stomachs knowing who you're like, imagine being on a grid with Schumacher and Senna and
Yeah.
Nigel Mansell, and it's like, if you want any chance of winning, you have to push the limits of your capability to try and match these guys, who are often in better machinery as well. You know, if you want any chance or any opportunity for success.
Yeah.
Like, that's scary stuff, man.
Like, I can't picture Lance Stroll strapping into a Formula 1 cockpit in the 80s when they wouldn't even wear seatbelts because they'd want to be flung from the car in case it catches on fire.
Yeah.
Intentionally don't wear seatbelts, risk ejection because it was safer.
Yeah, I don't want to
Then
be
the-
strapped to a burning vehicle.
Yeah. You know, that was the state of things. You know, we've seen some horrific stuff with guardrails, like simple things that weren't thought of until it's a problem. You know, the fact that Bahrain still had that split style guardrail that allowed Grosjean to go between it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that that was still there.
But that's
so many years later.
Yeah.
Because we've had issues with that split guardrail, like decapitating drivers in the past.
Yeah.
So the fact that they still had it. So there's some things where you go,
But it kind of shows that in this era, you can prepare for everything, but it's the thing that you don't prepare for, or the thing that you don't think is going to be an issue
exactly
turns
right.
out to be the problem.
I mean, the only reason
where
that
he
guardrail's
crashed is an unusual spot, right?
Yeah, they're like, no one's going to crash it. And if they do, you know.
It's not going to be high speed.
Exactly. And then, of course, trust him to do something stupid and then hit it at just that angle.
Yeah.
You know. So you,
But
that's the
again,
thing about it.
even what I was saying before, walks away. And only with some burns.
Yeah.
But not only keeps us alive, but he didn't have,
He raced the
life-altering
next year in a
injuries.
different category.
Yeah.
Exactly. He continued on.
You know, so
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect. Watching those sorts of races, I find it very thrilling and entertaining, but at the same time, almost uncomfortable because it's like, it's like where F1 is today and how we've sort of known it over the last 10 to 15 years, and the safety standards, and we talk about tracks all the time, how they have these massive runoff areas, and it's pretty hard to have like a really horrific crash these days. They've kind of got safety protocols in place.
What you want, naturally.
Yeah, but and then all of a sudden you're watching these races, and Adelaide included, where it's like, wow, it's just concrete barriers.
Yeah.
Following the roads everywhere. The spectators are right there.
Yeah. I mean, Monaco is probably the most alarming and eye-opening. Like now, you'd call it minimal runoff.
Yeah.
If there's runoff, back then it's no. It's a pinball track.
It's you're either in the race or you're no longer in the race. So
like pretty crazy.
Yeah. What about Murray Walker?
Yeah. Don't get to hear many races that he's commentating.
No. The first thing I picked up watching a race from 94 was difference in the commentary. Obviously, you got Murray Walker.
He's
pretty much
commentating alone.
Carrying the whole responsibility.
Yeah.
And obviously his voice is very iconic to that
He's
time
the voice
as
of
well.
Formula One. Even still, I'd say.
Yeah, so that was nice to hear again. And you look at today, you got a team who does the commentating, you got a team who does the pit lane. Yeah. You got
the segments in between the sessions, and it's a different crew
you got
again.
Different guys for like your pre-race and your post-race.
Yeah.
Like back then, it was just him.
Yeah.
And
you turn your TV on, you don't even see practice. Maybe you see qualifying delayed.
Yeah.
You turn your TV on, you get the race, and you get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
It's simple.
There was no pre-race build-up.
Yeah.
There was no commentary for the whole start of it. It just was like going through the grid stuff and some of the shots. Then all of a sudden, Murray's he's in the room, he's plugged in, he's like, all right, let's start the race.
Go through the grid and away we go.
It was so primitive, no lap counter for most of the time. So half the time you're watching it,
you have no idea where you are.
Where are we in the race?
Yeah.
So, yeah, very, very funny. Like, again, you just don't know what you're missing until you go back and you watch this and you're like, man, how do people actually watch this? Like, it's kind of terrible.
Kind of terrible. It's also kind of refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we were talking about when timing went to shit in Bahrain, it's like, I'm so lost.
Yeah.
And it's so unnatural.
And you still have a lot of information there.
Yeah. But watching the old race, it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to have to sink into it and, and just hope that Murray tells me what lap it is.
Yeah.
And who's where, because you don't know.
Yeah.
No. But it was, really nice to watch, I think.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to doing another one from that era. I mean, it's just... It was just... So many things. Like, it doesn't even feel like that long ago. I guess like I'm in my 30s now, so that era is almost as old as I am. And there's that weird thing of like, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but when you see how much has changed and evolved, then you start to really see like, yeah, we're never going back to that sort of an era again. That was such a special time. And again, some of those people that were like giants of the sports, even those feel lost. It's very hard to capture that same legend around someone now because information is just so available. Everything at all times. How many people didn't know all the ins and outs of Senna? Like, again, he wasn't the most successful F1 driver of all time. But he made such an impact on the sport, and only, as you said, had 10 years of racing. Hamilton's coming up to his 20th, or is he over now? 21st?
No, he's like 18 something.
So almost double the amount of racing.
Yeah, and
then you add on all the extra races in a season as well. So crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean the concept of Nige coming back for a couple of races here and there, it'd be like Vettel, just be like, I'm just gonna come in and just fuck around and get a pole and a win. Like, again, just another thing from a foregone era. You just don't get that now.
Obviously he got pole and he got a bit lucky with the 2 DNFs.
And as it was spoken in the walk, the run through there. A couple of easy overtakes as well.
Yeah. You still had to put the pressure on him, right?
Put the pressure on. The track's a tricky one to pass on, and they gave him a free passage effectively after a few mistakes. But it
was great to see him, get his last win, and especially like even being 40, 41, whatever it was, like that is even kind of hard to get your head around, that someone of that age can win a Grand Prix against some pretty big names.
And as a casual as well.
As a casual. Like, didn't race the full season. Wasn't like he was, in tune with that car and had his head around it. It was just literally like, hey, Nige, are you free this weekend?
Yeah.
We need you to come race for us. Here's the keys. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're seeing it this year. We've seen in the past, drivers can take some time to get in tune with the car, the team, the engineer. It's a process.
He's like the reverse Lawson. They're like, hey, come over to the big boys again and see what you can do. And he just
did it.
Knocks off a pole and a win.
Yeah, very easy.
Yeah.
Now, it's been 31 years, I guess, since Senna's death, and we've only had one since.
Yeah,
and that was incredible circumstances.
Yeah.
And again, changed Formula One.
Yeah.
In many, many ways.
Yeah.
Jules Bianchi crash, but shows how far the safety has come.
Oh, yeah.
And even that one, that was only, that was 20 years after Senna.
Yeah.
Effectively.
And that was, again, one of those freak of nature accidents that you can't really prepare for.
Yeah.
And you'd never think would happen in a million years. And it does. And you're like...
Yeah. And that's the thing. Again, they've changed. No tractors on track now.
Yeah. Wow. 95% of the time.
The Halo, like an astonishing amount of changes have made.
The Halo is one that really gets you. Hey, you go, how did they not race with these? How did no one ever think, hey, like maybe we should have some sort of, protection for the driver if it was to flip or go through something?
It's pretty crazy
because it's completely open in air.
Yeah. I feel like I can't think of, in the more recent years, 2000s onwards, I can't think of any crashes where, it's been a problem not having the Halo.
Yeah.
Except for the Jules Bianchi one. But how many since the Grosjean one? We've seen a couple at Spa where it's like, and Verstappen landing on Hamilton's Halo.
Doing a burnout on his dome.
Like straight away, it's like, wow, if the Halo wasn't there, you're looking at potentially 4 fatalities. And it's like, how has that happened? Like,
or life-altering injuries, right?
Yeah. Are they getting complacent now that they've got this safety? Like, is it changing the racing like that? They're just like, they're so safe.
Yeah.
The move's always on.
Well, you had Verstappen in Silverstone, and we just had Jack Doohan in Suzuka that had 50G impacts into the wall, and I'm sure that there might be some, you could look into what the G-force was for Ayrton Senna's crash, but I'm sure it wasn't even that
again,
impactful.
That was just the worst luck.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a suspension arm penetrated his cockpit and hit him in the head. I mean, why didn't that suspension arm break in half? Why did it stay rigid? And again, just freak accident.
So before we wrap it up, we have to mention Adrian Newey. So obviously it was a big part of the 94 season, a big part of Williams. Almost spit insane to think that he was such a big part of F1 then, and he's still today such a big part of F1, but in such a different,
Yeah. He stands alone.
Yeah, like there is no other Nui, is it? There's no other guy. Like, you have team principals that you can kind of compare, and they have rivalries, and you can sort of say, they're very equal or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's no other Nui.
Yeah,
And
you can't tell me the name of one other car designer in Formula 1.
no,
Ever.
no,
Like,
that's right.
historically.
Yeah.
It's Adrian Newey, right?
So, and then you think about his run, like obviously he worked with Senna and Hill, and then you think about like his run in Red Bull. So, he had Vettel, Verstappen. Now he's made the switch over to Aston Martin.
See what he can do.
Depends on what that driver pairing is going to look like next year.
I mean, it shows his it's a tough one. You got to wonder what happened. They dropped off all the driver aids, and then they're now driving a car that was built to have driver aids that were then taken away. Like, why didn't they see those changes sooner?
Yeah.
Was it the higher ups going, we're not spending money on this car? Was it Newey being complacent?
Yeah.
Was it him not seeing the vision?
Yeah.
Like, how did it go from, we can't wrap our heads around the car, and we know why, to, all right, here's this car. Okay, like that pushed us to have to make a change.
Yeah.
Like, how did they just go, yep, bang.
In such a small
And we spoke about 1.6 points for the first 4 races as a team to straight away over 9 points a race.
Yeah.
Like that's a massive increase.
Huge turnaround.
Yeah.
So,
and is that his engineering nous? Or is it his shift in drive?
Yeah.
I mean, we've read some quotes that he really still takes it very personally.
yeah, I mean, how can you not, right? Like, you'd have to feel somewhat responsible on some level. Whether an investigation clears you of any wrongdoing, I'm sure that no one had the intention of making a dangerous car to potentially have someone killed. No one's doing that. But you do look, maybe how many issues were overlooked as like, we can't fix that right now, or we have more pressing issues than that one right now.
Yeah.
Let's just drive around it. We've got a talented driver who can drive around it.
Clearly.
And
I mean, that's the thing. It's from what I understand, it comes down to one of two things, and they don't know. Broken steering, which, I mean, you can see the footage. He just understeers off. Broken steering, or the car bottoms out, and he loses the capability of steering.
Yeah.
Obviously, if the steering, we've seen cars fail. If the steering failed, is what it is. But if the car was too low and was bottoming out, was that just aggression? Was it get the car as low as possible, and this is how we can eliminate some of the issues, and they just went too far?
Yeah.
I mean, how we saw, like you said, there's 2 accidents, there's 2 deaths that weekend, and a third near miss with Rubens Barrichello. I mean, his face was all fucked up after his crash.
Yeah.
Like 3 serious accidents. So the track alone was fast, scary, unforgiving, bumpy, rough, which is not ideal, especially when you've got an ill handling car in the first place. But was that their fix? Just low, too low?
So, I guess wrapping up with the question, if the season's remembered differently if they win, I think no. And I think the biggest reason is because we've spoken about Imola for a massive chunk about an Adelaide race, because it's such a pivotal event in the F1's history. And it's just it sort of has carried over the whole season.
Yeah.
And it had implications throughout the whole season and for seasons after.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about Adelaide, and that still has such a gravitational pull to how things went and how things are today. So,
well, I guess, I disagree, but I want, like, you're 100% right. We spoke about Imola. That is the story of 94, no matter what happens. But would we be talking about Imola so focused?
Yeah.
If Williams win the championship.
Yeah.
Would it almost be, it'd never be pushed aside, of course, ever. But, like, potentially more Senna's, struggles.
Yeah.
As opposed to the team struggles. And Hill, potentially.
So a bit of a narrative shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, instead of being the team, the car, is it Senna just struggled? Again, new team, new car. We've seen struggles,
Yeah.
Was it him alone but then because he'll comes through
Yeah.
and gets the championship, that's the potential there to change
Yeah. All right.
what's.
So bring Adelaide back.
Bring Adelaide back. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I love
bring it-
Melbourne.
you
Keep Melbourne,
keep having both.
but bring Adelaide back.
Double header.
Yeah.
Double header. Shut down half of Australia for us. I
Yeah.
don't mind.
Nah, sounds good to me. Have open the season and close the season.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
Hey,
something?
everyone says they love the crowd. They love the weather.
Yeah.
So,
We got the biggest turnout. So imagine we had 2 now.
Yeah.
So
I
all
think Adelaide crowd.
yeah. All right. GG's.
Yep.
I'll see you in the next one.
Let's do it.